In 621 AD, 13 monks save a future Chinese emperor from assassins, using nothing but their fists and farm tools. Their reward? Permission to train a standing army of warrior monks. Fast forward to the 1850s, and a rebellion involving martial arts societies erupts into the deadliest civil war in human history, killing 20 million people over 14 years. When the Qing government finally crushes the uprising in 1864, they hunt down anyone suspected of rebel connections, driving masters underground. Jump to 2017, and a chubby MMA fighter named Su Xiaodong knocks out a Tai Chi master in 10 seconds on camera. Exposing centuries of mysticism to millions of shocked viewers. Today, you'll discover why Kung Fu was the most dangerous secret in Chinese history, why governments hunted its masters like terrorists, and why the only techniques that survived are the ones quietly winning fights in UFC cages right now. This is the real history of Kung Fu, the story they never wanted you to know. Welcome to Martial Road, where warriors live forever. The legend says it all began around 495 AD, when an Indian Buddhist monk named Bodhi Dharma arrived at the Shaolin temple in Henan province. He found the monks weak, unable to sit through meditation without collapsing. So he created a series of exercises called the 18 Lohan hands, movements designed to strengthen both body and spirit. Beautiful story. Partially true. Here's what they don't tell you. Bodhidharma's exercises weren't combat techniques. They were conditioning drills. The real fighting system came later, much later, and it didn't come from meditation. It came from necessity. By the 6th century, China was fragmenting. Warlords carved up territories. Bandits controlled the roads. Monasteries filled with valuable donations and rice stores became targets. The Shaolin monks had two choices: die or learn to defend themselves. They chose to survive. They studied the soldiers who passed through, the mercenaries, the military manuals. They analyzed animal movements, yes, but not in some mystical way. They watched how a snake strikes without telegraphing, how a crane balances on unstable ground, how a tiger explodes from stillness. These weren't spiritual metaphors. They were biomechanical solutions to combat problems. By 621 AD, during the Tang dynasty, 13 Shaolin monks saved the future emperor 𝐷𝐸𝐵 from an assassination attempt. Their reward? Imperial protection, land grants, and permission to train a standing army of warrior monks. This wasn't a monastery anymore. It was a military installation with a religious cover. And that's when Kung Fu became something else entirely. Here's the secret they buried in history books. Kung Fu wasn't designed for empty hands. It was designed for weapons, specifically for the weapons peasants could hide. In 1644, the Ming dynasty collapsed. The Manchu invaders established the Qing dynasty and immediately banned weapons for Han Chinese civilians. Swords? Illegal. Spears? Forbidden. Even carrying a knife could get you executed. But they couldn't ban farm tools. They couldn't ban staffs or poles used for carrying water, or the 3-section staff that was just a rice flail. They couldn't ban your hands. This is where Kung Fu evolved into its most dangerous form. Masters created systems specifically designed to turn everyday objects into lethal weapons. Wing Chun's wooden dummy? It taught you to fight at close range where weapons couldn't be drawn. The butterfly swords? Short enough to hide in your sleeves. Drunken boxing? It looked like entertainment until the drunk man suddenly wasn't drunk anymore and you were already bleeding. Between 1850 and 1864, a massive rebellion nearly destroyed China. The Taiping Rebellion killed an estimated 20 to 30 million people, more than World War I. And many of the rebel armies were trained by kung fu masters who saw the Qing dynasty as foreign oppressors. The government's response was predictable and brutal. They hunted down kung fu schools. They executed masters in public squares. They burned training manuals, and they created a propaganda campaign that lasts to this day. Kung Fu is performance art, not real combat. It's acrobatics, it's opera, it's anything except what it actually was: a revolutionary military training system disguised as cultural tradition. The masters who survived went underground. They taught in secret. They encoded their techniques in forms that looked like dances, and they passed down a warning to every student: never reveal the true applications, because if the government knew what you really learned, you'd disappear. By the early 1900s, Kung Fu had evolved into hundreds of distinct styles, each family guarding their techniques like nuclear codes. Then came the Boxer Rebellion of 1900, where martial artists claiming invincibility to bullets charged into machine gun fire. They died by the thousands, and the world laughed. China's intellectuals were humiliated. They blamed traditional culture for China's weakness. And when the Communist Revolution succeeded in 1949, Chairman Mao had a solution: erase the past. The Cultural Revolution of 1966 to 1976 was a systematic destruction of Chinese history. Temples were demolished. Masters were publicly beaten and humiliated. Training manuals that had been preserved for centuries were burned in bonfires. Students were encouraged to denounce their teachers as counter-revolutionaries. Thousands of Kung Fu masters fled to Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Southeast Asia. They took their knowledge with them, and in those refugee communities, something unexpected happened. They started teaching foreigners. Bruce Lee was born in San Francisco but raised in Hong Kong. He learned Wing Chun from Ip Man, one of the masters who had escaped the mainland. But Lee did something revolutionary. He questioned everything. He tested techniques through actual fighting, not forms. He threw out what didn't work. He kept what did. And in 1964, he wrote a private training manual that would change martial arts forever. He called it Jeet Kune Do, the way of the intercepting fist. It wasn't a style, it was a philosophy. Absorb what is useful, reject what is useless. Add what is specifically your own. He died in 1973 at age 32 under mysterious circumstances. But his philosophy survived, and it planted a seed that would eventually destroy the traditional Kung Fu world. For decades, Kung Fu masters in China claimed supernatural abilities. They could knock people down without touching them. They could withstand any strike. They were invincible. And because public challenge matches were illegal, nobody could prove them wrong. Until 2017, a mixed martial arts fighter named Xu Xiaodong, a heavyset man with no mystical aura whatsoever, issued a public challenge: fight me or admit you're a fraud. A Tai Chi master named Wei Lei accepted. The fight was scheduled in Chengdu, and it lasted 10 seconds. Xu Xiaodong walked forward, threw a few basic punches, and Wei Lei collapsed like a sack of rice. The video went viral. Within days, millions of Chinese citizens watched their traditional masters exposed as charlatans. Xu Xiaodong became public enemy number one. The Chinese government banned his social media accounts. They prevented him from buying plane tickets. They erased his face from the Chinese internet using AI. But the damage was done. One by one, traditional masters accepted his challenge, and one by one, they lost. Not close fights, humiliating, one-sided beatings that look like adult versus child. The Kung Fu world fractured. Some masters admitted that competition forms had replaced combat training decades ago. Others doubled down, claiming Xu Xiaodong used illegal techniques, as if street fights have rules. And a very few, said what everyone was thinking: We lost our way. But here's what nobody talks about. Some Kung Fu actually works, just not the way you think. In modern MMA, you'll find pieces of Kung Fu hiding in plain sight. The oblique kick that Jon Jones uses to destroy knees? It's from Chinese systems specifically designed to cripple an opponent's mobility. The question mark kick that Yair Rodriguez knocked out 𝐀𝐛𝐨𝐮𝐿 with? Straight from northern Shaolin. The inside leg kick that Muay Thai fighters use? Chinese martial artists were doing it centuries before Thailand existed as a country. Zhang Weili, the Chinese UFC champion, doesn't claim to use traditional Kung Fu, but she trained in Sanda, the Chinese military combat system that extracted only the techniques that worked in actual fighting. No forms, no mysticism, just what breaks bones and ends fights. She's a world champion. The difference? Reality testing. The techniques that survived did so because someone used them in actual combat and lived. The techniques that died existed only in demonstrations and forms, never pressure tested against a resisting opponent who wants to hurt you. Kung Lee, a Sanda fighter who became a UFC veteran, once said, "Traditional Kung Fu has everything MMA uses. The problem is nobody trains it for fighting anymore. They train it for performance." And there's the tragedy. Somewhere in the last 200 years, as governments hunted masters and revolutions destroyed lineages, the combat applications were lost. What remained were the forms, beautiful, intricate, and completely divorced from their original purpose. Today, in remote villages across China, old men still practice Kung Fu at dawn. They move through forms their grandfathers taught them. But when you ask them what the movements mean, what they're actually doing, most can't tell you. The knowledge died with the masters who were too afraid to write it down. The real history of Kung Fu isn't about mystical monks in mountain temples. It's about peasants learning to kill soldiers. It's about revolutionaries hiding military training in cultural performance. It's about governments hunting down knowledge and burning it before it could spread. The techniques that survived MMA's crucible, the oblique kicks, the question mark kicks, the sweeps and trips and angular footwork, those are the ghosts of Kung Fu's combat past. They work. They've always worked. But they were buried under centuries of secrecy, political suppression, and eventually, self-delusion. Bruce Lee saw it coming. He warned that traditional martial arts would become the classical mess if they don't evolve. He was right. Most Kung Fu schools today teach museum pieces, preserve forms with no understanding of application. But somewhere, in a warehouse gym in China or a basement in Hong Kong, there's probably an old master teaching a small group of students the real techniques. The ones his grandfather made him swear never to show publicly. The ones that actually work. And those students will face a choice. Preserve the tradition and let it die beautiful, or test it in real combat and risk destroying the illusion forever. The history of Kung Fu is the history of knowledge lost and found and lost again. A cycle that continues every time someone asks the dangerous question, does this actually work? And in MMA cages across the world, with every oblique kick and question mark strike and sweeping takedown, Kung Fu answers quietly, without forms or mysticism. Yes, parts of us survived. On Martial Road, where warriors live forever. Please do not forget to subscribe to receive more.